What if I told you that Max Verstappen is thinking about leaving Red Bull just after the hardest blow of his career? The departure of the only man he trusted within the team. Are we facing a simple hot reaction, or the beginning of the end of an era in Formula One? Max Verstappen has reached a point in his career where for the first time it's not about speed, talent, or even titles. It's about something much deeper: confidence. Because everything that is happening within Red Bull is not a simple drop in performance, it is a progressive breakdown of the structure that led it to dominate Formula One for years. And at the center of all this earthquake there is a key name that changes absolutely everything: Gianpiero Lambiase. For almost a decade, Lambiase was not only his race engineer, he was his direct connection with the car, with the strategy, and with calm in the most critical moments. He was the one who understood Verstappen's language on the track, who could anticipate his reactions, and who transformed his aggressiveness into absolute precision. That relationship is not built overnight, much less easily replaced. Therefore, when his departure is confirmed, it is not just another news within the paddock, it is a direct blow to the core of the Dutch driver. And just at that moment, Verstappen sends a message that leaves everyone frozen. He doesn't talk about team changes, he doesn't talk about signings or contracts. He talks about something much more radical: the real possibility of moving away from Formula One. Not from anger, not from defeat, but from a personal reflection that reveals wear and tear, disconnection, and a clear loss of motivation. You start to question whether all the effort, the 22 or 24 races a year, the constant pressure, and the paddock environment are really still worth it. But this message does not appear out of nowhere. It comes in a context where Red Bull is no longer that dominant and untouchable team. The results have begun to fall, the performance of the car no longer makes a difference, and the most worrying thing, the internal feeling is of disorder, of loss of direction. Verstappen is no longer fighting for comfortable victories, he now finds himself fighting for positions that are very far from what he considers acceptable. And for a driver built to win, that's not just frustrating, it's unacceptable. This is where everything starts to connect. Lambiase's departure is not an isolated event, it is the last straw in a process that comes from behind. Internal tensions, questionable decisions, constant changes within the team, and a technical direction that no longer transmits the same security. Verstappen feels it, he lives it from within, and that is why his message has so much weight. Because it is not an external opinion, it is the voice of the protagonist of this era himself. And the most important thing in all this is to understand that Verstappen is not just any driver. You don't need to prove anything. He is already a champion, he has already dominated, he has already made history. Therefore, when he begins to consider whether he wants to continue, the problem is not sporting, it is structural. It is the clearest sign that something very big is breaking within Red Bull. This is the beginning of the conflict. It's not just the output of an engineer. It's not just a bad result. It is the exact moment in which the most important driver on the grid begins to look further and consider that his future could be far from everything we know so far. The problem for Red Bull is no longer containing the crisis. The problem is that the crisis has already escalated to a level where even Max Verstappen has stopped being an immovable pillar. And this is where the real conflict begins, because his message not only reflects personal doubts, but directly exposes the weaknesses of a team that is falling apart from within. After the departure of Gianpiero Lambiase, what remains at Red Bull is a void that is impossible to fill in the short term. There is no natural replacement for a figure who spent years building an almost perfect connection with Verstappen. And that, in a sport where every detail counts, where every decision in thousands defines races, is a brutal disadvantage. Max no longer has the only person at his side who could balance his intensity, order chaos at critical moments, and turn his instincts into results. But the most serious thing is not just the loss of Lambiase, it is what it represents. Because his departure confirms something that had already been suspected. Red Bull is losing key talent, fundamental pieces that sustained its dominance. And when that happens, the domino effect is inevitable. Engineers, technical decisions, strategic direction. Everything begins to falter. Verstappen perceives it, suffers it on the track, and translates it into a message that is no longer just emotional. It is a clear warning. Meanwhile, the results accompany this narrative. Red Bull is no longer the benchmark team, and what were once dominant victories now become races where Verstappen struggles simply to stay competitive. There is even talk of a team that has fallen in the standings, losing ground to rivals that were previously far behind. And for someone like Max, used to checking in every weekend, this change is not just uncomfortable. It's unacceptable. This is where the conflict reaches its most tense point. Because Verstappen is no longer reacting like a driver waiting for solutions. He is acting like someone evaluating his exit. His speech changes completely. He stops focusing on improving the car and begins to question whether he wants to continue in this environment. He talks about the calendar, the wear and tear, his life outside of Formula One. But deep down, everything points to the same thing. He has lost connection with the project. And this generates brutal pressure within Red Bull, because they are not just trying to recover performance. They are trying to retain the best driver in the world in the middle of an internal crisis. Each decision now has double weight, sporting and political. Each mistake brings Verstappen closer to the starting gate. In addition, there is a factor that complicates it even more. Verstappen has already made it clear that his only priority is to win. He doesn't care about the name of the team, nor the history, nor the loyalty. If Red Bull can't give him a competitive car, his stay stops making sense. And that turns this whole situation into a bomb ready to explode. Because for the first time in years, Red Bull doesn't control the narrative, does not control performance. And the most dangerous thing, he doesn't control Verstappen. This is the real breaking point, where everything built begins to fall apart, where the driver who won it all begins to look outside, or even towards a completely different life away from Formula One. And this is where this whole story reaches its most critical point. Because what seemed like an internal crisis now becomes a decision that can completely change Formula One as we know it. Max Verstappen is no longer in a phase of doubt. He is in a phase of decision. Everything that has happened, the drop in performance, the internal chaos at Red Bull, and above all the departure of Gianpiero Lambiase, has built a scenario where continuing is no longer an automatic option. For the first time, the Dutchman is seriously considering a future outside the team, and most shockingly, outside even Formula One itself. Because when a driver like Verstappen begins to prioritize his personal life, his peace of mind and his happiness over competing, it means that the link with the sport is being broken. And that's something no team can fix solely with technical improvements or future promises. Red Bull can try to rebuild, it can bring in new pieces, it can correct mistakes. But there is something that cannot be easily recovered: the motivation of a champion who has already won everything. At this point, the message that Verstappen sends stops being a warning and becomes a silent ultimatum. Either Red Bull manages to completely reverse the situation and return a winning and stable project, or its departure will be inevitable. There are no middle terms. There is no infinite patience, because he himself has already made it clear that he is not willing to stay fighting for secondary positions. And here appears the most extreme scenario, but also the most realistic within this context: withdrawal. Not as an impulsive reaction, but as a conscious decision. Verstappen does not need to continue to prove anything. His legacy is already assured. And if the sport stops giving him what he is looking for, he has no problem taking a step aside. That's the difference between a driver who chases glory and one who has already conquered it. For Red Bull, this represents the worst possible outcome. Not only would they lose their star driver, they would lose the central axis on which they built their entire dominant era. Without Verstappen, the project loses meaning, direction, and weight within the paddock. And the most serious thing, they would lose credibility at a time when they are already showing structural weakness. Thus, we reach this final point where everything remains up in the air. There is no official decision yet, but all signs point in the same direction. Verstappen is closer than ever to closing a historic stage. Whether leaving Red Bull or walking away from Formula One completely, what is clear is that nothing will be the same after this moment. Because when the best driver in the world begins to consider whether he wants to continue, the story does not continue, the story changes. And so we reach the final point of this story, a point where we are no longer talking just about rumors, nor about passing crises, but about a possible change of era in Formula One. Max Verstappen has sent a message that goes far beyond Red Bull. It is a message that exposes the fragility of a team that seemed invincible, that reveals the wear and tear of a driver who has won everything, and that makes it clear that even at the top, nothing lasts forever. The departure of Gianpiero Lambiase is not only a significant loss, it is the symbol of a project that is beginning to lose its foundations. Red Bull now faces its biggest challenge. It is not rebuilding a car, it is not improving results. It is regaining the trust of its star driver. Because without Verstappen, everything else loses meaning. And the most worrying thing for them is that this time it does not depend solely on what they do on the track, but on something much more complex, giving Max back the motivation that he seems to have lost. Meanwhile, Verstappen finds himself in a unique position. You are in complete control of your future. He can decide to stay, he can change teams, or he can do something that few dare even consider, leaving at the top. And that possibility, which previously seemed impossible, is more real than ever today. Because when a pilot begins to question whether it is worth continuing, there is no longer a contract, nor a project, nor a promise that guarantees his permanence. Formula One is facing a historic moment. A moment where an individual decision can redefine the balance of the entire grid. And although there is still no official announcement, everything indicates that we are seeing the beginning of the end of the Verstappen era at Red Bull. The only question left is, will Red Bull arrive in time to prevent it? Or are we about to witness one of the most shocking exits in the history of the sport? Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.